welcome, eventually, to this week's edition of the Old Parachute Podcast. And I am joined today by DJ Danny Rampling. How you doing, Danny? All right?
Hello, Chris. Nice to be here.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Come on, we had some serious technical difficulties there, and that's two blokes that are associated with the parachute regiment and technology not really working. So that's inevitable. Really.
We've got there. There's
We
always
got
a
there
way.
in some sort of thing. God, I'm back to using carrier pigeon with technology. I'm that solid with it. No, I appreciate you taking the time to come on the podcast, pal. It means a lot to me for you coming on. What I like to do with all the podcasts, I don't know if you've seen any, or what I like to do is I like to talk about where you grew up, what you were like at school, and then sort of what led you down the path and the route that you took along the way. So yeah, over to you, Danny.
Right. So where I grew up, I was born in South London in Streatham, which back then in the 60s was quite a respectable area, part of London. It was the suburbs. But yeah, so that's where I was born and went to school there. Primary school, I was all right. I enjoyed that. Secondary school, I wasn't too keen on secondary school. All I was thinking about was going to work, even at 13 years old. So I left school early. I left at just over 15. And I came back to sit the exams in that summer, the following year. So I left early, and the school agreed to that. But yeah, the secondary school wasn't a very nice experience. It was just like, it was boring.
It's not for everyone, is it?
No, it was just bloody.
It's not for everyone, is it? School.
It was boring. I liked the carpentry and joinery class. I really liked that. I used to enjoy geography and English. Didn't like the maths class too much. In fact, was resided to this class where they put the I wouldn't say the unteachable, but we were in this class, and one of the other guys in the class was Jim Bob from Carter the Unstoppable Sex Machine. So the teacher would allow us to play the radio, and we talk about music during the maths class and do a bit of basic maths. So it was a really relaxed class, and that was really enjoyable because we could just really do what we wanted to do, and that worked. It worked. So yeah, I left early, and I went to work. My uncle worked at Ashby and Horner, which was a city building firm. So I went there and got a job there. Now you wouldn't be able to get a job at 15 and a half with all of the health and safety and compliance and employment laws and everything. But back then that was acceptable. So yeah, that's
no, that is, isn't it? Like I say, well, obviously back then you left school at 15. I think it was quite a common thing, 15 or 16, when and most people, because I don't feel like uni was a massive thing back then. Most people went out and like got on the tools, didn't they, on building sites and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I suppose obviously I have read somewhere that you got into the music scene quite young. So was that as an interest all the way through secondary school, and you had a big interest in music? Because some kids do have an interest in music. I did, but I never obviously took it musician level. But obviously you did, like.
Yeah, well, nice guitar in the background there.
Yeah,
musician.
I've been trying to learn it. I've been trying to learn to play it. But with these sausage fingers, right? It's near on impossible.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I get frustrated with it, but
you gotta have nimble fingers. But keep trying, Chris. But yeah, with the music, punk rock came along in 76, 77. I'm not sure if I left school in 76 or 77. It's a long while ago. But it was a hot summer. Got into like the early stages of punk. Well, not the really early stages. I think like kind of later on in 77. And wanted to play in a band, learned bass guitar, and I was really kind of like obsessed with music. I loved collecting records. That was the start of my foundations to become a DJ. I used to play the records at family parties at Christmas. It was quite quite commonplace then. All the family would gather at my grandparents' house and throw these parties, everyone smoking cigars, knocking back the booze, dancing, having a sing-song. And I'd get the opportunity to play the records, and I was fascinated by playing the records and people dancing, family members and friends of the family dancing to the music. So that's really and the radio. And my mother always used to have the radio on in the house. So I used to help my mother out in the house. I'm the eldest of 4 children. So I used to really help my mother out. She worked 3 jobs at one stage. My old man worked in the print. He worked on the newspapers in Fleet Street. Didn't want me to follow into that profession, which was very well paid and, kind of nominal hours. Do like 4 nights a week and, have a lot of spare time. But I think he didn't want to follow me in there because I, kind of see the real him or something. I didn't really get on with my father, and he didn't get on with us. So I moved out very young. I moved out and went around the corner to live with my grandparents because I admired my grandfather, who was a military man. And I had a room to myself in that house. My grandmother was a bit barking mad and quite a vicious woman that used to torture him. He was a good man, and I looked up to him, and he really was the foundations of my life path, really, in a sense. He was very, very motivational, a wise man, full of experience. He'd been through the war, long service in the military, and we used to sit there talking for hours. So he was really my father. I looked up to him as my father, and he encouraged me with the army as well. So we'll come on to that. So yeah, I think I moved out about 13 or 14 years old. So I was living, it wasn't far away, it was around the corner, but I had my own space then. Yeah.
Sound. So I suppose you kind of knew what you wanted to do, I suppose, with the music scene if you were big into it. So I suppose, where did it start? Is that initially what you kind of went into when you left school? Like, well, obviously,
No,
because it's a bit young to be getting into, you probably
no.
did a few other bits and bobs.
No, I wanted to work in a record company. I wrote to lots of record companies, didn't get any responses from them. Wanted to work in a record shop because I was obsessed with collecting records, but that didn't happen at that stage. So I was learning bass guitar, rehearsed with a couple of bands over a 3-year period. I wasn't great at the bass guitar, but I could play basic chords and stuff. And that was the post-punk days, and then I joined pirate radio, Kiss Radio, in God, when was that? 82, 83. I'm not sure really. So long ago. So I got a job, a slot, unknown DJ, through sending in a top 3 to the station director, who was on another station at the time. He liked my top 3. A mate of mine knew him, and Kiss was forming as a pirate station. I got this late night slot. I think it was 2 till 4, or 2 till 4 it was, and used to get a night bus there and a night bus back. There was probably like some night workers listening and a few cab drivers at that point. But yeah, it started my career in radio, and I'm forever grateful to Gordon Mack from My Soul Radio, who gave a lot of us our breaks. A lot of household names today came through Kiss FM, and Gordon Mack nurtured all of that talent and saw talent early on. So yeah, I got a break in radio, and I spent, I think it was about 15 years at Kiss Radio before I joined Radio 1. So when I was listening to the radio as a kid, I was fascinated and obsessed with how does that music come out of that small transistor radio, and where are they broadcasting from, and how is somebody able to broadcast their voice and play music at the same time. So it was this fascination around the radio very early on, and I was dreaming of becoming a radio DJ. I used to go to sleep at night and take the radio to bed, when I should have been sleeping, and listen to those stations at the time late night, and then later on, I used to listen to John Peel, who I met when I joined Radio 1.
Wow.
Bless his soul. He really was very, very welcoming on my first show there. I was taken up to meet him. He was a great guy, John Peel. And I spoke about, when I was a teenager, how I used to love listening to his shows, and so many records that I bought that he had been playing on the show. So yeah, he was a big influence with radio as well into teenage years. But yeah, so that's how the radio career formed, really. But just having this passion at a young age and wanting to do that in my life. And I think it's calling. And I'm on the radio now. I broadcast on Saturday night on forceradio.live, which is a station that Phil Campion, who became a friend who I met at a Stuart McLaughlin March in London some years ago. He invited me to join the station, and I host a Saturday night show from 7 to 9 p.m. Every Saturday. So there's quite a few former military presenters on the station, and it's a great station, and I'm really happy there. It's it's a continuation of my shows on KISS and Radio 1, playing uplifting house music on Saturday night.
Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. I went down quite recently. Well, I say recently, probably about March, I think, and did a podcast with Phil down at Forces Radio and that. So yeah, it's a good setup they've got going off down there, isn't it? It's really good.
Yeah. It's a growing station.
Yeah, absolutely. And the guests he's had on the podcasts and that, and he's a really good. That's where I've got I went down on there and I took away from Phil the way he does it, and kind of put my own little spin on it. But yeah, it kind of listening to him and speaking to him on the podcast is what kind of the style I kind of go for, like a nice relaxed style, and the questioning sort of very, very similar. So no, brilliant stuff. So yeah, okay, so Radio 1. So let's touch on, because again, I don't know your timeline. Obviously, I only found this out recently, and it was through Forces Radio that I realised that you'd actually served with 10 Para. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. I joined.
So when was that?
1983. I did P Company, July 1983. The cadre had began with, I think it was 113 or 16 men. And there were 13 of us that passed out at Malta Barracks. And I think that was one of the proudest days, alongside the birth of my son and some other notable music moments of my life. A great achievement, a really massive, major achievement. So I attempted to join the regular army because at that time, back in the 80s, there was a lot of high unemployment, and I wanted to see the world. So my grandfather had been with the BEF in Europe. He was at Dunkirk. He was in Burma with the 2nd Battalion of the Oxford Bucks, who later become the Royal Green Jackets. So he never spoke about the kind of the horrors of war very much, but and he didn't glorify anything. But he was very influential, shall I say, in me following his footsteps. I wanted to follow his footsteps, and I was really proud of him, and he was proud of me. So I went to Norbury Careers Office, which is in South London at the time. I think that was in I think it might have been at the beginning of 1982, shortly before the war in the Falklands. And it took a year to get to Sutton Coldfield Selection Centre. At that time, the army was, at the recruitment, it was full. And then that conflict came along in the South Atlantic, and the recruit levels rose sharply. So, people wanted to go and support that conflict. So I waited a year. I went to Sutton Coldfield. I'd been training harder. I was I've always been fit. I've always had an interest in fitness and loved running. I don't run as much now because of the impact on the knees. But at that time, I loved run for miles and miles and miles. So I went to Sutton Coldfield. I was fit as a fiddle. And at that time, I wasn't really working. I was like doing jobs here and there, kind of day rate jobs, kind of get a bit of work and then back on the dole again. And it's like it wasn't a great time in terms of work, but my aim was to join. So I went there on the first night, and then you have all the tests the next day. So the fitness test, the BFT and everything, and the interview. So I do remember walking into the communal room, and there's a window at the back of the room. And at that time, I didn't know what that was, but that was obviously an observation window that you couldn't see through, but they were observing the potential recruits. And I distinctly remember, and I was thinking, what's that? What is that, kind of window for? Didn't know at the time. Anyway, I passed all the tests, but there was one incident when, well, not an instant, but I think it might have got my card marked really, because I was doing the pull-ups on the barn. I think it was 15 or 20, something like that. I got a bit gobby. I said, "Is that it?" And there was a captain from the parachute regiment, this tall, formidable character with silver hair who'd been in the Falklands, who absolutely launched this tirade at me. I won't repeat it, but you can understand what he was saying.
I can imagine. Yeah.
The C word, the F word, and everything else, and said, "Do another 30," and I did them. And I, kind of did the BFT, and that was easy because I was so fit, and I was in my early 20s, and then I had the interview. So you go into the colonel's office, the selection office, with this colonel, and he was sitting there with his dog and all the pictures of his career on the wall, smoking a pipe, and going through the interview. And he said, "Sorry, you haven't made the regiment, but you can join the Royal Green Jackets." And I said to him, "Well, even though that was my grandfather's regiment, or the formations of that regiment," I said, "No, I've come here to join the regiment." And I walked away very disappointed, came home gutted, absolutely gutted, from the train from I think that was the first time I'd been to the Midlands, kind of, and came home gutted. And he could see how disappointed I was because I'd trained for this for so long. And he was very level-headed about it and said, "Look, it's not the end of the world. How about joining the Territorial Army?" At that time, I didn't really know what the TA was. So he gave me a number because he was a Territorial Army soldier before he joined regular army.
All right. Okay.
For a few years in the 30s. So he gave me the number of Duke of York's headquarters, and I called them up, obviously from the landline at that time, back then in the 80s.
Online.
Went there to the intake, and you had to do the laps around that running circuit, which is still there in the Duke of York's headquarters in Kings Road, and passed the basic fitness test, and then was enlisted into the intake. And then there were 3 weekends there was a lot of training over quite a few weeks of fitness. Go there during the week. I think it was a Tuesday night, run round Hyde Park, run round Battersea Park, getting everyone up to a good level of fitness. And then there were 3 weekends in Finchley, which was the pre-Carder Aldershot 3 weekends. So it was the pre kind of selection before P Company. And then went to Aldershot and spent, I think it was 2 weeks, or it may have been 10 days, 2 weeks at Malta Barracks. We were given the option to go home on the weekend. I decided, no, and with a few of us, might as well stay here. What was the point of going back to South London? So that was my experience. Well, the experience and how I got into the Territorial Army as such. And I really enjoyed Aldershot because I thought, this is really good. It's very, very difficult, but you were seeing how the regular army works, you know, going to the stores in the barracks, and then there was a quartermaster. He'd been in the Falklands, this big fucking lump with a 80s Airborne tash, a razor sharp sense of humour, but issued to basic kit, and yeah, and then we commenced P Company.
How did you find that?
Um, it is, I think it's one of the toughest tests of all time. It is great achievement to those who get through it and pass. How did I find it? Again, I was very fit, and what had happened, and I believe what got me through P Company, was the mindset and the testament to my grandfather, who died in April that year. He went in for an operation, had a heart attack, and died before I went to P Company. So all the way round through, you know, everything, the log race, Trinasium, everything, all I was thinking about was him, the 10-miler, that I'm going to pass this, and he's with me, you know, he's with me here. And it got me through that. It really got me through that. And I passed it. And it was, you know, I had no intention of not passing it, as tough as it is. And it really taught me a lot about myself and what one is capable of and what one can achieve. And I think that's a big factor in P Company. It's like, you know, kind of your test of resilience, your capacity for motivation, your capacity to keep going when under massive pressure. And yeah, that test really teaches resilience and what we're capable of, what we can do, and put our mindset to something and put the effort in, and it happens. And that's long before the days of, you know, kind of Tony Robbins and personal development, motivational courses. But my mind was focused on passing out there. And I believe I had the spirit of my grandfather with me. He was a PTI later on in the war years. He was shelled at Dunkirk, evacuated off of the beach. He was part of the BEF for a year, and he was taken to rehabilitation and spent many months in a hospital, and recovered from that, fortunately. But he's section. He lost a lot of men there with the shelling. He did tell me a couple of stories, but, you know, I'd love to sit down on a bench with him, because there was so much more we could have spoken about, and what I know now, you know, and kind of just everything about that time and the history of everything, because I was pretty wet behind the ears with, you know, kind of general history. But subsequent to his death, you know, it's become, you know, very clear, you know, what happened there, and Burma. He was in Burma, stationed in Burma. And yeah, I'd really just give anything to sit down on a bench with him and have a right good old chat and a bit of a laugh.
Yeah, it's one of them, isn't it? Because you don't think, you think that these people, your grandparents and your parents, in a lot of cases, that are just going to be around forever, and you don't appreciate it, do you, until they're not there to talk to again. You know? And but like you say, you felt like your spirit was with you and helped you through kind of the test, the mental test, and physical test that is P Company. So yeah, no, like I say, P Company, I don't care who you are and how fit you are. It's designed to be beyond fitness, isn't it? It's designed to test you, kind of like everything you've just said there. But yeah, you kind of you grizz through it. And then, so did you kind of, how long did you stay with Tempara then after that? Was you there a while, or?
Just under 3 years. But that day on Malta Barracks, it was scorching hot in July throughout the whole of P Company. Oh, it was glorious weather. It was my birthday on the weekend there. Didn't go out on the piss. It's just I thought it's best to stay like kind of sober and get through this. But yeah, I mean, it was great weather, and yeah, I stayed with the battalion with Tempara for just under 3 years. I went to Bryce Norton for the wings course. Unfortunately, I had an abnormal landing on the 7th jump before the 8th jump. which was the first container jump of 2, and I unclipped the container, and container hit the floor, and I wasn't properly in the landing position, and I thought I was on the ground, so I crashed into the DZ, dislocated my shoulder, was taken to Oxford Infirmary, and yeah, the course was over for me. As much as I wanted to go back, I said, can't I stay here and like just, you know, kind of go and do this again? It's one jump away. They weren't having that. I thought Bryce Norton was great though. The food was great. The wrens were lovely. Yeah. Got chatted up by this lovely wren. She was gorgeous. Yeah. Thought, oh, this is all right here. Great food, you know, very relaxed.
It's a shock to the system, isn't it? It's a shock to the system, Bryce Norton. When you've been in army barracks and then you go to an RAF base like Bryce Norton and you go there, you are like, what is this? I've joined the wrong unit here.
Quite a contrast.
Oh God, yeah.
Complete polarity. But mind you, saying that, I didn't think that the scoff at Aldershot was that bad. You know, kind of was so blooming hungry, but it was bad.
Yeah.
But
army food was
the hunger and the calories that were burnt. It was just like, yeah, eat it all, you know. So yeah, Bryce Norton, great experience, you know, kind of. I think that, you know, the balloon jump was the first jump, and it's so eerie, and the balloon goes up and it's just silence and stillness, this sense of stillness. I just look up and get out and jump. But at that time I had a really good head for heights because I was working up ladders, you know. I was painting buildings and stuff and helping out on building projects. So I had a really good head for heights. And I think that with the Trinasium, you know, and that is a bit of when you've got to touch your toes on the top, on the 2 scaffold bowls, and you look down, it's like, it's a long way down. But yeah, okay, there's netting around the Trinasium, but nevertheless, it's the ultimate test of fear, isn't it? Which a lot of people... It is,
and the Trinasium is... Sorry, go on.
Which a lot of people, you know, some people can't get through that, can they? Unfortunately,
it's exactly that, and I kind of it's probably 50-50. A lot of people, I found the Trinasium. I didn't have a problem with heights. I never have done. I thought the Trinasium was a bit of a break, but to some people, that was their worst event, and I couldn't get my head around that because for me, it was like the log race, which was just horrendous. I still have nightmares about that now. But you know, certain things like that. But if heights isn't your thing and you've got to overcome that, it's a big fear because there are nets. But if you fall off that top bars on the trees, you're going to hurt yourself, aren't you?
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know,
yeah.
And there were people that when you do the run across the planks and you punch through the cargo net, that didn't hook on properly through the net, and then they end up breaking legs and stuff.
Yeah.
So it was a tricky event, without a doubt. And obviously you start the Trinasium straight after the 10 miler, don't you? So you're already on sort of knackered legs and shaky legs to start with.
But pumped up on adrenaline. But I couldn't wait.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
Couldn't wait to get that over and done with. You know, I think like most people looking up, it's like, let's just get this over and done with. Let's just get up there, get it done, and get back down. That was what was going through my mind at the time. But yeah, Bryce Norton, and then the balloon jump was the first jump, and then all of the ground training and the knacker cracker. And there was a bloke in front of me on the knacker cracker, and he backed out. He was taken aside immediately. I just fucking look up and just bloody go for it, you know. Just get off this platform. Bang.
Yeah, I mean that wasn't a pleasant experience though. Was it? Not because of the height, just because of the keys in the name, the knacker cracker. I'll leave that to the viewer's discretion as to what it fucking cracked. But it kind of, if you weren't in the right position in your harness either, it could sting a bit. That's all I'll say. It could sting a bit. But no, I was lucky enough that I joined 97, so 2 Para was still in Aldershot. So I did about 18 months to 2 years in the shop,
Yeah.
So I got a bit of time there before the battalion then, and the 16 Air Assault or 5 Airborne Brigade before it moved to 16 or so. We moved to Colchester, but I was lucky enough to do a stint in Aldershot, which I'm glad about because it's kind of
Good.
the home of the kind of the unit and the airborne sort of
Yeah.
soldier, wasn't it?
So much history associated with Aldershot. Yeah.
The Traff. Everyone knows the Traff pub and the Peggy and stuff. The Peggy weren't so much. I don't know if it ever was a reg pub. It was more like attachments, like your 9 Squadron guys. But the Traff was always the kind of reg pub, and it was a strange old place. There wasn't a lot of women in Aldershot. That's all I'll say. So when we moved to Colchester, it were like, what is going on here? There were clubs, pubs, women, and it was that was another shock to the system for a young paratrooper. I can tell you that.
Quite a lot of distractions in Colchester.
There was. I think I kind of recently had Chip Chapman on, who was my commanding officer. He was a young lieutenant in the Falklands, and then he went on to be Lieutenant Colonel and CO of 2 Para. And he tells a story on the podcast about when we got to Colchester, how we literally got banned from everywhere within 2 weeks. The whole of 2 Para were banned from everywhere. The RSM had to go and meet the mayor. He had to go and meet some councillors to kind of negotiate letting us into pubs and bars. So we didn't do ourselves any favours, but
yeah, welcome to Colchester.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
exactly that.
With the wings course, I was then sent back with another guy to go back and do that other jump. So we got our train fare page from the Ford Company store office. So we went up to Swindon Station. No mobile phones at the time. There's going to be transport collecting you from Swindon Station. So we got on a Friday evening, and the transport wasn't there. So we managed to call Bryce Norton. They said, you've got to make your own way here. We didn't have a debit card or a credit card, and we had no money. We had the train fare was paid. We didn't have enough money for the taxi. They wouldn't pay for the taxi. So we ended up sleeping out. Well, not sleeping, just sitting outside Swindon Station all night to the first train out of there on Saturday, which I think was about 6 a.m. or something. So that was that. And then to go back again was about another year. So I stayed with the battalion for just around like 2 years, but the service is just under 3. And then I went off to America. I went to America in '86 to go and see some of the world. And that's my kind of journey through 10 Para. But I was on Operation Lionheart in 1984 in Germany, which was the biggest operation since the Second World War of mobilizing troops in Europe. And most of that exercise I spent in a trench with an 84 and carrying that 84 on some tabs, some long tabs.
Yeah.
But it was a great experience, Lionheart. I mean, it's highly revered. There's quite a few old videos online on YouTube and stuff. But it was, and there was this rumor going around that the Russians are going to attack us. Well, what the hell are we going to do? We've got no bloody live ammunition. So it was just like, kind of the rumors were circulating. There's gonna be a Russian invasion because it was the Cold War, wasn't it, at that time?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So I think they probably those rumors were started from the top brass to keep everyone on their toes.
Well, look, you got to love a military rumor. You got to love a military, and they go through the military, don't they? They go through the battalions, like literally sweep through. And you could start a rumor, right? And then 3 days later, someone would come and tell you and be like, I started that like yesterday or 2 days ago. You know what I mean? So that's how quickly they kind of spread. So we're good.
Another exercise,
okay.
10 Para just after
P
Company, just after 10 Para, where we were, I think it was Fensham Ponds in near Aldershot. So it was on an exercise for the weekend, which consisted of a water crossing in full kit, the Bergen, and rifle. But there was a tragedy on that water crossing. We were in the second section to go across, but the first section that went across, one of the blokes got he lost his life. He got caught up in the pond reeds, and he lost his life. We didn't know what had happened. They aborted the exercise. We were taken back to Chelsea and dispatched home. We had no idea that there'd been a fatality on that exercise. But he sadly lost his life. But wasn't particularly looking forward to that one anyway, really. It's just like very tragic, Yeah.
That's the thing. The training exercises that you'd have gone on, the similar sort of ones to I'd have gone on. They were geared at they were very serious things. As much as the word exercise was used, they were kind of, people did get injured. Certainly, whether it would be parachuting. I remember in Canada, there was an accidental shooting of the colour sergeant. He took a ricochet in the back of his knee, and it's because you were training like as real as you could get it. So with the river crossing, you'd have been doing everything, your patrolling skills and everything else. And sadly, that's part. It's not just in the wartime that people kind of end up losing their life. Training exercise, because of the realism of the training. Accidents happen as well, don't they?
We were on live firing in Brecon, and that was the first time of the grenades, lobbing the grenade over the wall. That was quite a hairy moment. That pin's release, it's like, shit, don't drop this thing, just get it over that wall, and then all of the gravel blasting over. But I had another experience there. I was in the 84 section, and I was next up to live fire at this tank on the hill in Brecon, and I forgot to put the ear defenders in. When that round came out, the 84, my body was projected about 4 feet up in the air. This sonic boom and a state of shock, pulled off of the out the dugout by this ferocious. He didn't like some people in the company, and I was one of them. Sammy Doherty. Colour Sergeant Sammy Doherty. He was a Falklands veteran, ferocious character from Free Para. Oh my gosh, he gave me such a hard time. But I do believe that damaged my hearing. That was the start of my hearing loss, by the noise and the sound and the impact of that round leaving the weapon. And I missed the target.
Oh no!
He wasn't happy at all. My God, the bollocking, like dragged back up to the up on the hill. There was an area there, and then on another occasion, in a bit of a flap, I loaded a Jimpy back to front in Purbright. He was behind me and kicked me in the balls from behind, and it felt like my balls were coming out of my mouth. And never did that again.
Times, eh?
Never did that again, and then was dispatched to the back of the range for the rest of the firing day.
Wowzers! That's what I mean. Different times. Can you imagine that now in the current military? I can't. Well, I don't know. I can't imagine that sort of stuff happens. But it's been said before, back then, and even in my time as well. It was hands on, wasn't it? If you fucked up, you got a bit of a shoeing, didn't you?
Oh yes, yeah.
But that was that. I suppose that was to emphasise the importance of how. Because if you're a GP, I'm sure you can relate to the fact that how important it was to be slick with a GPMG, because that's a section or a platoon weapon asset, depending on how it was kind of placed.
Yeah.
So that's your support, your fire support, and that's massively. You've got to be slick on the GPMG, haven't you? If you're carrying it.
And that was the first attempt with the live firing with the Jimpy. So that was at Purbright.
But that lesson learned.
Oh my gosh, yeah, a big lesson learned. But yeah, just there's some kind of couple of experiences there from those days. And you know what? I'm very proud of that time. It taught me a lot about myself, and a boy became a man. And yeah, and the achievement and the brotherhood, uh, friends for life. You know, we meet up, for company, 10 para, we meet up Christmas time on, and you know, other meets during the year. And it's always good banter and a good laugh, and yeah, just friends for life, and everyone helps each other out. Um, it's a very,
And it is that, isn't it? It is a brotherhood. I use that almost to cult status
yeah,
with the parachute regiment. Whether you were kind of TA, whether you were 10 para, 4 para, you've all shared that hardship of earning, you know, the
yeah,
kind of the maroon berry.
yeah.
And that creates a bond for life. And it's hard for civilians probably to kind of wrap their head around that, isn't it? Sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if I had have been accepted at Sutton Coldfield that day, my life would have been very different. I wouldn't have, you know, gone on to the. I'm very doubtful I'd have led this career in music. I probably would have given long service in the army. That, you know, probably, you know, kind of a number of years like my grandfather did. He was 21 years in service. So I don't think that, you know, looking back on it, that wasn't my life path. So I had the best of both worlds with the weekend warriors, as they were known then,
Yeah.
and then went on to DJ. And yeah, that's. But yeah, I'm really glad that I made that decision, and you know, in the spirit of my grandfather and all of his influences, and I wouldn't miss that for the world.
Yeah, no, fair play, fair play. And I have utmost respect for anyone that served in the military. Obviously, my fondness lies with, and that was one of the kind of factors in inviting you on, and kind of getting in touch with you, because you've got that link with the parachute regiment. And the brotherhood, you know, so that was it was a good kind of link. Obviously, I'm a big fan of your music career, and I'm sure the viewers and followers, everyone knows who you are, and stuff like that from your, you know, your kind of your music
Radio
and stuff.
One, yeah,
So,
music, yeah.
well, yeah, Radio One, and everything else, and it's, yeah. So talk me through it, because it's like a bit of a timeline. Obviously, kind of you ended up. You said you did Kiss for 15 years before ending up on Radio One. Where did, because like you said that you're kind of one of the founding members of the kind of the whole scene, weren't you, back then? The house and the kind of rave scene, and
Yeah. Well,
so
yeah.
yeah. How did that come about?
Well, a trip to Ibiza in 1987, greatly influenced by an Argentinian refugee DJ, Alfredo, who's a great source of inspiration, and inspired us greatly. And that was the catalyst. His music, the open air club, the scene that was building and just emerging in Ibiza. Well, not just emerging, this scene, this, you know, this international scene, and being influenced by that. And that was kind of at the time that house music was, you know, really coming to the fore. House had been going for 3 or 4 years, 5 years in Chicago, Detroit, but yeah, into Europe. And that was the catalyst. The trip to Ibiza, came back, started our respected clubs, and yeah, I mean, that was the whole foundation to benchmark for the whole of the 90s decade that followed, with the super clubs, the compilations, the big artists, the festival scene. Because the rave scene, I didn't play on many raves, large raves. They were very commercial. I chose not to do that. I wasn't really aligned with that. Great and everything. A lot of people made their careers, but that was really a prelude to the festival scene that we know and love now. You know, kind of how festivals were back then, back in that time in the 80s, were not the way festivals are today. So the influences came from the rave scene and electronic music, and the fusion of electronic music with indie music and rock music. That, you know, if you the early 90s, the Happy Mondays, Stone Roses, you know, all of these bands were fused at Primal Scream with dance music. They're all influenced. So everything melded together. And the 90s was an amazing decade. I think the ultimate decade, the 90s, for music, fashion. People had money, you know, kind of, there was a lot more disposable income at that time. It was a real feel-good decade, the 90s, in comparison. The 80s was brilliant as well, but there was a lot more economic strife in the 80s. The 90s, things really took off, and the economy was buoyant, and it was a party every weekend. It was a great party. But I've always kept fit, and people say to me, well, how did you survive that? Well, I didn't take things to excess, for one, and I take care of myself. That's very important to me to this day. I go to the gym classes 3-4 times a week. I was doing a lot of endurance charity challenges with Paris 10 a few years ago, pre-COVID, and that came along and kind of took that away. But yeah, I did quite a few of those. I was on Enduring Heritage, which was a tab from Arnhem to Normandy with Major Andrew Fox and 3 Para. It was a charity fundraiser, and I went on 4 days of that tab for I think it was about 80 miles of that tab. And we raised a lot of money with the charity fundraising. So that was a brilliant experience, but also with the fundraising for Support Our Paras, raised, quite a considerable amount of money from the efforts there. With those, kind of those 10 milers in Colchester, and a great event. It's great. It's a great Sunday morning out, and then we go back to Great Dunmow with my mate Ross, who's former 10 Para. We go back to his local pub, and we drink a pint for every mile very quickly.
Quite rightly so as well.
And a few more for good measure. But happy days. Happy days. Yeah.
Yeah, I've not done the Colchester's Paris 10. I've obviously done a lot of 10 milers around Colchester when I was in, but I did the Catterick Paris 10.
Yeah.
Gosh, a few years, probably 10, 12 years ago now. And they are good at events, and like you say, they have a good setup, don't they? The red threads jumping, and a lot of money's raised as well. It's really good. I think it gives some people a taster of how hard and how arduous that sort of terrain is that we tab across for 10 miles. And I think people are shocked, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a great day out. So anyone who's considering it, go ahead and do it. I mean, I'd love to do another one, but we'll see. I don't know, my knees are not as good now, but we'll see.
The para-reg mentality, you'll get through it. Just have to tape them up with masking tape or something.
Need to get a bit more training in as well. But
absolutely.
So there's the reg history.
Yeah. No, so the music scene again. So I suppose, like you say, the 90s. I grew up. I was a teenager in the 90s, so I can relate to what you say. I didn't know any different. I was only young in the 80s. I was born in 80, but so 94, 95, 96 for me. I was 14, 15, and 16. You had kind of the prodigy coming about, and you had sort of all the Britpop scene. So the music scene was just so kind of almost diverse, wasn't it? You had all sorts going on in the 90s.
Gosh, yeah. Goldie, Faithless, Basement Jaxx, such a Blur, Pulp, Oasis, all of these bands, kind of the Roses, the Mondays, just such a vast, broad spectrum of music. And the music scene was, it's still amazing, our music scene. But that was the ultimate decade for such, kind of a diverse range of music that all seemed to interlink and fuse together through festivals and, club nights and everything. And the super clubs up, in Liverpool and London and Scotland, and every city had Newcastle, every city, Nottingham, every city had, really great clubs and large clubs. And it was a golden decade. And
they were busy, weren't they? They were busy. They were busy Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday night. You couldn't pick a night where it wasn't busy. It was always busy. Now you go out and it's just a Saturday night, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, generally, But I think, over that decade, I did more miles on the motorway than Eddie Stobart's fleet.
Up and down different venues,
Yeah, there's not many places in the UK I haven't played. And I love playing on home turf. I love playing here in the UK. I love it. Scotland, Ireland. Played in Ireland recently, in Belfast at the the classical concert, which was amazing. There was 5,500 people there in the sunshine. Great classical concert. It was brilliant. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And like, so that leads me on quite nice. So 1991, you
Yeah.
win world #1 DJ. Is that am I right in thinking that? Is that right?
Well, yeah, it was the formation of the DJ Mag top world's best DJ, but it was not like it is today. But yes, I got that that accolade on the first DJ magazine. There was no award ceremony or anything, but I got this award, I guess, kind of everything that was
Yeah, but
happening at
what
that
an
time.
accolade that
Oh
is.
no, absolutely, yeah. But yeah, I think yeah, that's a great achievement. And I remember I was playing in Adelaide in Australia in this place, weird place, Adelaide, but had all these banners up with like, kind of world's #1 DJ. It's like, right, okay.
Surreal.
Yeah.
Quite surreal moment.
Yeah, oh gosh, yeah. And the same when I joined Radio 1. I remember I wasn't told about this. I was told there's going to be a billboard campaign. I was driving into Leicester and there's this massive 30, one of those big, massive billboards with my face plastered on it with I'm a dance I'm a dance music DJ, not a chat show host. join me on Radio 1. It was like the first couple of months they launched this massive marketing campaign, and there was like bus stops, billboards all around this country. Great marketing campaign, but I was a bit like taken back driving into Leicester, going to a gig there. It's like, couldn't believe my eyes.
It is though, isn't it? Because it's kind of like you say. I think that's human nature again, isn't it? Because you kind of, unless you're kind of a bit full of yourself, and there are people out there that obviously are, and they're like, oh yeah, but like you kind of put yourself and go, wow, am I actually? Is this? It's almost surreal and almost out of body, I suppose, isn't it? You're a bit like, well,
Yeah.
that's me. I'm doing this right now.
Yeah, it's pretty surreal on those moments. But yeah, I had my feet on the ground. What I do in the DJ arena is like an actor on stage. The performance stays on the stage, and when I leave the stage and the show's over, I'm just who I am.
Yeah,
Just me.
that's a good way to be.
That's
It's a good way.
that's my avatar. I'm a conduit for energy and exchanging that energy and raising the frequency with the audience, and giving them good uplifting music, and that's reciprocated, and that's a real thrill, and that's what I do. But once I'm stepping away from that, I don't take that with me everywhere. It's like, it's just part of who I am.
Yeah, I know that's a good way to be. It's a good way to be because you've got to. It's like it's not. I don't know a massive amount about DJing, but you're your very own front man there, aren't you? You're responsible there for bringing in certain music, getting the crowd, like you've just said, and
Yeah.
kind of. So you're putting on a massive act, and then you come off, and then you're back to being, Danny Rampling from, where you're from, and it's just it's
No,
a bit crazy,
exactly.
isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. If there's 10 people in a room or 10,000, I'll get them dancing. It's about
Yeah,
energy.
no, I
I'll
quite
get them.
believe it.
I'll
I
get them
quite believe it
dancing.
as well.
Yeah.
Fair play to you, fair play. So that leads me on, so probably the biggest venues. So the biggest venue where you've literally gone, a bit like what we've just talked about there, when you've gone to say biggest venue where you've gone and you've started playing and you've gone, whoa, this is huge. I don't know how
Well,
many people. What would that be for you?
yeah, the biggest venue that I've ever played was on the Millennium Eid in South Africa, and Radio 1 had broadcasts all around the world. And I was in Cape Town at River Club, and there was 35,000 people at this open air event on the racecourse, and that was epic. But that's the biggest place I've played. But if you look at kind of the DJ industry now, you look at David Guetta, Calvin Harris, kind of Tiesto, these DJs, they're playing to 100,000 people in big stadiums, Martin Garrix, with the big EDM sounding, kind of commercial music, but they're playing to 100,000 people plus on, you know, on gigs, regular, you know, kind of, you know, selling out these places. And yeah, in my opinion, they're, you know, kind of, they're the second wave. They're the Ronaldos and the Beckhams of, and Messi of, you know, in comparison to football. Whereas we were like, you know, kind of the, you know, kind of the 70s, early 80s footballers, you know, kind of your Bobby Moores and George Best and what have you, in comparison to this second wave, you know, and it, you know, it's very lucrative. It's, you know, it's become such a huge industry, but that end of the marketplace is incredible. And I think Calvin Harris is, you know, he's, you know, he's a great DJ, and he has a lot of respect for me because I influenced him through my radio show on BBC Radio 1 with the Love Group Dance Party. He used to listen to the radio, and the music I was playing, it inspired him. And yeah, those were the early days of his DJ career. But yeah, he's, I mean, I think right now he's probably the, you know, kind of the ultimate stadium DJ alongside David Guetta. Yeah, and he's a very, he's a lovely bloke. He's very down to earth, very down to earth. He's got humility about him, you know. There's no like massive ego going on. I'm very grateful for the position he's in, and I think any position you're in, life is about gratitude. It's daily gratitude, you know, through good times and bad times. It's like giving thanks that we're alive, and for what we have rather than what we don't have, you know, because there's always someone better than you. There's always someone ahead of you. Life's not about that. And that's my own perspective and my own approach to life. You know, I'm very grateful for everything that I have in my life and my career. And I'm very, very passionate about what I do, very committed to this day. I'm, you know, I work many hours with music production and compiling music, producing radio shows, preparation for shows on the weekend. My diary this year is full up to the end of November, which is great in comparison to the last 3 years, because it was really, really difficult and challenging. You know, first 2 years, 2020 into 22, core income gone, evaporated for many people in hospitality and entertainment and what have you. So no furlough or anything. So yeah, it was, you know, glad that's all behind. But as a result of that, you know, my diary is full up until the end of November, and I'm having a great time going out there, playing some great sets, and there's so much good music out there. Yeah, so yeah, it's good. I'm also been appointed as a music director on a film by Levison Wood, who's also Reg, Walking the
I'm
Nile.
trying to get him on. I'm trying to get Levison on. I have spoke to him, but he's busy at the minute. And he did say to me that he's going to hopefully come on the podcast towards the back end of the year. So if he sees this or you speak to him, tell him I haven't forgot him, and he's got to come on with the Reg connection. Yeah, right. This film is called The Burn. It's a story of a veteran and integrating back into society after combat in the recent conflicts in Afghanistan. So it's a really good story, and it's based at a festival. So yeah, I'm really proud to be associated with this film. And yeah, appointed as a music consultant director on the film. But when's that likely to be released? Is it right? There's the first shoot is going to be shot at a festival called Chili Man, which is taking place on the weekend of the 26th, 27th, 28th of July on an island, Cranmore Island, I think it's called, which is just outside Edinburgh. So on Levison Wood's socials, there's details of that festival, and everybody who attends that festival will be in the film, because all of the outtakes at the festival and all of the festival
scenes are going to be shot over those 3 days, which will then be incorporated into the film. So that's going to be the basis of the trailer at this festival. So if you want to be in a film and get yourself noticed, Chilly Man, near Edinburgh, 26th to 28th of July. Only a few weeks away. Well, not even that, 4 weeks away.
But yeah,
But it's going to be
not
a
long at all.
great festival. I'm playing on the Friday night. Really looking forward to that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely awesome stuff. I mean, you covered a lot of questions I had there about what you've got up and coming, and obviously you kind of, like you said, your diaries fill full to November, and I look out for that film. So so I misunderstood that a little bit. Is it going to be? Is that going to be? So it's going to be filmed as part of the festival, and then is there a release date for it in the future, or is that not confirmed yet?
This is the pre-production of all the festival
Right.
shooting of all of the scene, the scene of the festival, which will form the trailer for the film. So then all of that will be put together as a trailer, as a short trailer for film companies and investors to see what this film is about. So once that's done, then it will go on to the next round, which will be the full production, which is very likely to be in the spring of next year, 2025. Yeah, it's going to be a great film.
Yeah, no, I look forward to it, because I don't know if you are aware. With the podcast, one of the main reasons to start the podcast was to kind of raise awareness for mental health amongst veterans and emergency services.
Yes.
Because again, I'm sure you know people, and I know people along the way that have kind of sadly taken their own life. I believe there's still 22 veterans a day, or a number around there, that take their own lives every day, and it's still too many. So any sort of film, I'm assuming that the part of the film is going to kind of center around how he deals with integrating back into civilian life after being on a tour like Afghanistan. So
yeah, absolutely. And the mental health, and also the film is supporting those associated charities and with the mental health side of things. Yeah.
It's still, I know we've come a long way with it, but it's still not kind of anywhere where it should be, and the support is still kind of lacking, in my opinion. Like I say, we are kind of ahead of where we were a few years back, but I don't think COVID's helped. And that's not just mental health with veterans; it's kind of mental health with everyone. I feel it's kind of seems to be everywhere now, doesn't it? And people really, really struggling with it. I think the money situation doesn't help either, does it? People are genuinely struggling in life because of the current climate.
Yeah, well, the economy in Europe as a whole, and here in Britain, is not stable right now, and this is a result of the last 3-4 years. You know, now we're in this position now. Yeah, and a lot of people are struggling with mortgage interest rates rising, not being in fixed rates. There's kind of it's difficult out there for a lot of people right now. Whether that's going to improve at some point, who's to say? Who's to say? But we are in the thick of it right now, and this is all a result of what happened over the last 4 years, and it's all part of the Great Reset, the Great Financial Reset.
Yeah, you're not wrong there.
Mm.
But look, Danny, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. I not keep any more of your time and boring you with me stories, but I will. I'll have a chat with you in a minute off air. But no, it's been an absolute pleasure. I look forward to the film coming out that you're part of, and I look forward to following you on various festivals and stuff throughout the year.
Thanks, Chris. Pleasure talking with you.
Brilliant, pal.